Hello everyone, I'm Manveer and today through this video I'm going to compel you all to think about the vision for the blind. I was going through a couple of TED Talks when I stumbled upon this particular talk by Isaac Litsky titled What Reality Are You Creating for Yourself? He talked about the challenges he faced each day while he was losing his eyesight gradually. While listening to him, I had one constant question revolving in my mind, which was what is the perception of vision for congenitally blind people? Congenitally blind. Those who are blind by birth have had no visual encounters with the real world and cannot even imagine it the way we understand vision. Their vision is majorly shaped by what they interpret through their other senses and what they are told by those who can see, taking into account their own different perspectives and biases. Also considering how the visual cortex plays an important role in vision and blindness. To understand this in depth, I will break my analysis into subtopics, which will be the answers to the following questions. How do blind people rely on their other senses? What do the congenitally blind people see in their dreams, considering that they have never seen anything at all? What is their perception of visual verbs? How does looking through others' eyes influence their vision? What role does the visual cortex in the brain play if they cannot see at all? And how is a damaged visual cortex connected to blindness? The people who are blind have lost one of the most important sensory abilities that a human being possesses. They can only rely on the other senses to compensate for the sense of vision that they do not have. However, these other senses give very little information about a subject, and if looked at individually, no sensory modality can alone be enough to build a meaningful connection with the outer world. This leads to the need for the usage of all other senses in a simultaneous, specific, and powerful manner to successfully interact with the outer world. This can be better understood when thought of a person with perfect vision being blindfolded and left in the same spot as the blind man. For the sighted person, not being able to see will create the outer world experiences as mere unwanted noises, whereas those are the very details a blind person needs. Although for a blind person, having no vision is normal, for those who can see, the dependency on the sense of vision actually creates a greater degree of handicap when forced not to use it. Here, I want you to pause and think about this. In blind people, if all the other senses work and are used with such precision, is it possible for blind people to dream? If yes, what do they see? Those who are congenitally blind have auditory dreams, and those who lose their sight later in life dream of the visuals they saw in the past. To better understand the perception of vision in congenitally blind, it is important to address the usage and understanding of visual verbs. Words like look, see, and watch all have a difference in usage. Despite not being able to experience them, blind people vaguely differentiate between all of them as described to them verbally and create a visual perception in correlation with them. Therefore, it is incredible to record how these visual verbs can help blind people perceive information about a subject even when they do not see the difference between those visual verbs themselves. Going deeper into information required for visual perception, when a blind person asks for a description of a subject that they may not be able to touch, they want to know different things about it depending on different situations. For example, a car. Since they cannot feel the entire car at once, depending on the context, they might just want to know if it is a sedan or an SUV. Or other times, they might just want to know if it even belongs to me. This makes it really important to note what the sighted people tell the blind, for it can totally influence their perception. The perception that blind people create about a subject majorly depends on what the sighted people describe to them, which may or may not be biased. Here is another question for you. What do you see here? Well, most people would say a duck or a bird, but what about this? Looks more like a rabbit now, isn't it? Notice how merely by changing perspectives, we are calling it to be an entirely different animal altogether. Now it all depends on how you see the image and then what you tell a blind person about it. The difference in explanation may or may not be intentional, but surely influences their perception of vision. The physical appearance of a person is another thing that solely depends on how a person perceives it and how they describe it to blind people. Along with the things that they auditorily learn from others, predictions and beliefs also influence the way they understand vision. People who lost their eyesight over time may not be influenced in the same way. Some of them may also have some residual visual abilities, which, in addition to faded memory or visuals, help easily process auditory information and more accurately perceive vision, giving them an advantage over congenitally blind people. Taking into account all the external factors, let us now look at what goes on inside the brain. Along with these processing abilities, the brain also contains the visual cortex, which is literally responsible for the perception of vision. This brings us to another important question. If a person cannot see, will the visual cortex perform any function at all? It should be noted that a blind person may have lost their sense of vision, but they still have the visual cortex perfectly working in some cases. If a blind person never uses their visual cortex to perceive images or to see, it will be fair to ask what functions the visual cortex in their brains plays. Although specific former functions of the visual cortex may still be present, it is generally seen that in congenitally blind people, the visual cortices perform an entirely different role than what they were naturally supposed to. However, a damaged primary visual cortex does not necessarily mean complete blindness. On the other hand, blindness can also be caused due to damaged visual cortex. These damages may be congenital or acquired. Therefore, a damaged visual cortex can be a reason as well as a result of blindness. However, these damages to visual cortices can be recovered, potentially leading to a regain of vision in many cases. In Brain Sciences, Worth writes, and I quote, "In addition, new connections may emerge and cerebral networks may rearrange." Through my research, it can be concluded that the understanding of vision for a congenitally blind person, a person with gradual blindness, and an able sighted person is clearly different from each other. Although talking about the same subject, all three categories of people think and perceive information about it distinctively. While other senses can be really useful, for some it may act as an impediment. Visual verbs just have a verbal meaning to them. Moreover, what other people tell them about a subject through their lens has a great influence on the perception and perspective of blind people. With the damage to the visual cortex acting as a cause as well as a consequence of blindness, there still is a possibility to recover the vision. However, even then, the perception of vision for blind people will forever have its own distinct characteristics, which we discussed today. My sincere gratitude to my teammates Fardeen Ahmed, Krutika Ananganti, and Gautam Kakarla, who helped me with this project. Thank you.